got a very special guest here today, Doug Song. Known him for about a decade, and last year he sold his company. He's a Michigan unicorn for the first time in a long time. So happy to have him here, sharing his wisdom, talking about how and why to take care of your team. Why is it important to take care of your team during this crisis? And then once we understand why it's important, which we probably already know, but how do we do that during this crisis? So I'm Dave. I'm one of the hosts here. I'm an angel investor. I'm an ex-founder, and I was a CTO. And my co-hosts here, we've got Tapan Kataria. He's a good friend of mine, a fellow Spartan. He's with Backstage and Techstars. And we've got Amanda Lewin. She's the founder and CEO of Bamboo. She's another Spartan in the house. And I think we all know Doug, but I think it'll be special if we have Amanda. If you can hop in and you can, if you can intro Doug.
Yeah, sure.
Who's Doug when you think about Doug?
When I think about Doug, I think about community and giving back. He's a phenomenal leader, very people-focused. We get to work alongside, back in normal days in the office with a lot of duo team members, and they're just also kind and caring and just really conscious people. And I think it's been a very special culture to see develop here in Michigan. One of our more successful tech startups, and Doug has certainly been a great mentor and advisor to myself and a lot in the community. So we're very excited to have him here sharing some tips for us today.
All right.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for everyone joining. It's great to see so many folks who are trying to be very conscious about how to move through all this with their teams and be intentional about how to lead. So maybe just kind of start. That's sort of the discussion I want to have today, and it's this discussion that we've had actually throughout the company, not only Duo but also Cisco. But how do we want to show up and lead? And what are the things that are important now? Because this is not business as usual. Folks are we don't know all that's going on in everybody's lives, but we share a lot of hardships, right, that we're currently going through right now, of the loss of kind of community, the physical challenges of sort of sitting in the same chair all day long. Maybe we did that work too, maybe we didn't. But again, a lot of things that for many of us really represent a trauma, right, in our lives, and kind of how we're moving through it. So I'll just kind of share with you how we've thought about this, and kind of open up for conversation and discussion here, to share best practices, to see what others are doing, and again, see if we can't can try to continue to elevate the things that really are working for us, and all learn from each other. And so maybe to start, I sent out a mail, a couple of weeks ago, or several weeks ago, when this all started, to our company about what we need to do to basically care for ourselves, our customers, and our community in this time of crisis. Because I think that is sort of the priority order that we've thought about this. Unless individuals and our teams are taken care of and are whole, we can't take care of our customers, and we can't really meaningfully contribute to our community. It's sort of like you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself right before you help anybody else.
I was thinking that same thing.
Yeah, and so that's sort of been job one, and there's a lot to that in terms of, again, what we've had to do to make sure that we set the right tone from the top. Because again, being intentional in how we show up every day in this kind of environment and how we lead, it models the behavior that we want to see, and also helps set the right expectations for the team about, again, what we're asking people to do, which is, number one, job one, family first, right? Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, and so forth. As important as it is to be a leader in this time, it's important to be a human being, and so that's sort of job one. Job two has been in how we need to take care of our customers, and so for many of our customers, again, I don't know who all of yours are, but ours are a wider range of organizations in all kinds of industries or in the public sector, who in many cases have never dealt with something like this before. All of their employees having to work from home and be remote, and of course, Duo and Cisco more broadly, that's a lot of what we do, where we securely enable folks to get the things they need to do done And so in this turn, we really needed to step up to help folks in extraordinary circumstances in their time of need. And so, so there's a bunch of things we've done there to, again, provide, outsized help to these folks, but also set expectations with them about how we'll do business and how we are working to partner with them for their success at this time. And we'll talk more. I can talk more about that as well. But then the third is really around kind of our communities, because I think as Mr. Rogers said, so always times of sort of crisis, whatever, you look for the helpers, right? And that's all true. It's also the case that in this time we can be the helpers, and there are things I think as communities, even if we're locked in our houses at some level, we can do. I've seen the tech community rally around things like, Operation sort of Face Shield and 3D printing, face shields and protective gear for medical workers. Lots of volunteerism. In fact, Cisco just now doubled the amount of volunteer time off, and so people can basically take 2 full weeks of time off at Cisco today to go serve in their communities. And other ways in which we're matching grants, or we're again helping to organize some of the volunteer service efforts or help that we can deliver in the community, because people also need not just a reason to sort of hope, but a reason to help, right? And so we've created many opportunities for folks to be able to do that. So those are kind of the 3 buckets of our focus in priority order: caring for ourselves, our customers, and our communities. And I can double click into all those things to discuss that further. But wanted to kind of start with that, and also maybe propose a question to our other esteemed panelists here and other folks who joined us. So in this turn, one of the things that I've had to think about a lot, and I've asked our teams to as well, as they care for themselves, to think about what gives them energy and joy, because it's very easy to be overwhelmed with all that's going on, and it's hard to set boundaries, in our homes and in our kind of media consumption. It can be super overwhelming, and that's where I think we sort of have to have a proper balance of that. So we have had to ask ourselves, and we ask our leaders to talk about this with our people. What does give them sort of life and energy and joy at this time? Because again, I think more than ever, we have to find those opportunities to connect and create that. So for all of you, what are some good stories that you've all heard, or anything that's have been encouraging, inspiring for your teams through all this?
For me, I'm a team of one. It's just me. I don't have a company right now, but the thing that gives me energy and joy, I was actually right at the cusp of this, right about Wednesday, March 11th, when we started getting all those emails about things shutting down. Maybe the night before, Tuesday, I'd been thinking, maybe this can be an opportunity. School's out, and my son Colin and I just hang out, and we're just kind of like having a unexpected summer break, and that seemed great. And then all of a sudden, maybe 24 hours later, I just felt like the world was collapsing. My finances fell out of control. I didn't know what was going to happen, if I was going to be able to pay my rent. I didn't know, my investments were all just everything in the red. And so I got really, like you're saying, stressed out and overwhelmed. And now I'm just kind of taking it a day at a time. And I see him Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we carve out that time I look forward to it. We're spending time together, we're going for walks, playing video games, talking. Mm-hmm. So that's really the, I guess the shining light in my world right now is just hanging out with my son.
Yeah. And I hang out with my cute daddy.
I love doing stuff like this. This keeps me inspired, to be honest. So shifting to like virtual events and programming and just finding ways to still build community. I think a lot of people know that that's a passion of mine if they know me on this call. And I think now more than ever, you have to find ways to connect and lean in on each other. Also, I keep looking for positive stories in our community in Detroit, and everybody is trying to figure out how to lend a hand, and not everybody can sew a mask, right? Or hospitals can't always take those. And so it's been great to see local companies manufacturing, leveraging their Chinese contacts to get orders in, rushed over. So just yesterday, a member was able to order, got a shipment in, and donated 500 masks to Beaumont Hospital. And so, we're all hit in different ways. We're all on pause in different ways, but we can still do something, whether it's connect or leverage a contact or lean in and support. And that's what is really inspiring for me right now, keeping me feeling joy.
I think community is a big thing right now, right? Because right now the small to medium-sized businesses are the ones that have impacted a lot, as well as startups. So in terms of startups, I've been just hopping in call with 2 to 3 startups almost every day and trying to see how I can help, whether just bouncing off ideas or connecting them with a lot of the mentors within the Backstage and Techstars network. And then I've been making it a point to go shop at a local restaurant at least once every couple of days. Maybe get something small, but just leave a bigger tip so they can pay their employees. Which also kind of like reminds me, like Uber and Instacart. If you guys are using that, like give those people a big tip, right? Because they're risking their lives to come and help you, right? So that's kind of like one of the biggest things that I'm doing right now. And then stuff like this, right? Like answering questions. And I know that we don't have all the answers, so you want to bring amazing people like yourself who can answer questions for everybody.
So I think, that looking for those positives, I think it's super important, for ourselves individually, but also behavior to model as leaders, because identifying what gives us energy and how we can incorporate that into our daily routine this time where like nothing is routine, right? It's very important. And engaging kind of our teams and our communities in ways, again, that we can be there for other folks, we can inspire, we can encourage others, is a large part of, again, what it means to lead. And so that's been the first thing I think has been very important for us. And we've orchestrated that, right? We've designed ways to stay connected. We always had things like Coffee Roulette, which is actually a bot. I think it's a donut, but it's a bot on Slack that anyone who joined that channel will randomly be paired with somebody else for what typically has been, we give away these $5 sort of coffee gift cards, and those people go out on coffee. But now we have to figure out how to do this virtually. But so we've created these opportunities, more opportunities to connect than that now virtually. So there's other folks that teams are doing virtual happy hours where they're setting up. In fact, one of my favorites examples of this from Census, which is a company. Oh, by the way, today's the U.S. Census. Census days. We're postponing April Fools, right? That stuff has to come later. But today is Census Day, so if you do get a chance, go to census.gov. Please be counted. It's super important, and it basically dictates the next 10 years of benefits for our community. So if you get a chance, it's only 10 minutes, but please stand up and be counted. But the Census, the company in Ann Arbor, is doing things like a Elvis happy hour with their CEO, right? He's leading kind of a virtual kind of water cooler chat with himself dressed up as Elvis. He's also doing a CEO book club, a reading with all the kids in his company. So all the children of all the teammates at Census are joining together for a story time, right? Where he's basically reading stories on a lunch break to all the kids, and then they unmute everybody, and they just go. Everyone goes crazy, right? So stuff like that is it's important because we have to make this time for meaningful connections, and connect and ask about each other's families and activities, hobbies, pets, things like it's the physical isolation should not and can't lead to our personal isolation, our mental isolation. And part of that's also, just caring for our mental health, right? Making sure that people understand and we set the tone for our teams that now is a time where, these are dark days for many, many people. And increasingly here, we're probably gonna have many more stories of folks who are directly or affected by the pandemic. And so we have to do a couple of things. We can make sure we set boundaries for ourselves and allow folks to do so with our work as well, right? That, this is not an easy time for us to manage schedules and all this kind of thing. It's great that if people can do that and kind of build new schedules for themselves and their kids, as they are now trying to figure out spring break or work or, learning from home. Sticking those schedules and stuff, getting into some sort of routine is helpful, but we should also be flexible and understand that as teams, we're going to have to accommodate the personal hardships of many folks here who, I have, colleagues at Duo, for instance, whose spouses are medical workers, right? And with them, in kind of the line of fire, in fact, first responders to all this, it's really hard. Like, you hear these crazy stories of people having to sleep separately in different bedrooms, or even sometimes like in the car. You have, like I have developers who now have like a 1-year-old on one side and a 3-year-old on the other, and like, I can't even type. And, that's okay. A large part of our duty and care responsibility as leaders is to make sure that we design the work to be done that can actually, be successful, right, for our people. And so if you have to reduce work, then now is the time. Right, we have to cut out work. We have to reduce kind of the scope, and we talk about as a team, how folks are doing what's needed. And so, so on the last point, other than setting those boundaries, kind of with the company and also for ourselves, again, going on whatever media diet we need so that we're not overwhelmed by all that's going on. Being intentional and explicit about what we're going to choose to listen to, like Michigan.gov/ coronavirus is probably one of the best places to get sort of official information about this stuff if you're here. But just setting those limits, right? So you're not sort of constantly feeding that stuff all day long, keeping having TV run 24/7 because it's too much for anybody. And then in terms of other things that we ask of our folks, right? We ask that people do stand up and let their managers know when they have responsibilities to care for their families and others that are going to take them out of all this, because we have to manage this as a team, right? It's not incumbent on any individual or even like just a manager and their direct. As teams, we're going to have to go in and help cover each other and cover the work needed. And so a lot of these adjustments to our schedules and our workloads and so forth, it's a team sport, right? We've got to come together, huddle, and figure out kind of how, what's on the truck and what's coming off, right? We're on this new journey now.
Doug. Oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say before we hop into questions and answers, I've got something that's on my mind. You talked about a lot about boundaries, and you talked about having a kid on one side and a kid on the other side, and you can see I've got my son here at home. Thinking about that from a business perspective, the boundaries. Like what does that look like on those setting those boundaries, and how to manage the business needs for cash, productivity, taking care of people. What's your advice to founders out there who are struggling with those boundaries, and what is the right boundary, and how much to give of your business and of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, right? So as we kind of look ahead, with the orders that have come like day after day of new restrictions and kind of limitations on our ability to actually with individuals or businesses kind of operate the way we have. We have to take a long view of all this and steel ourselves for the fact that this is going to, it's kind of like a I don't know, it could be a month, several months sort of polar vortex, right? I know, but we've been through that. It's not like in Michigan, we don't know how to hibernate, but we just have to steel ourselves mentally and prepare ourselves for some of this. But part of it is just setting the explicit goals and re-goaling. And we as a team, we're doing that. We've been doing that pretty constantly, but we're sort of in a bigger push now to understand. Well, look, we're operating at probably maybe 70%, productivity if we're, and that's maybe being generous, right? And we know that, as things escalate, we have to have sort of business continuity plans, and we have to have contingency plans for, again, how we continue to maintain kind of our service and meet the expectations of our customers. But we also have to reset our expectations and those of our customers around, again, how we'll operate. And so that's the other piece of it. So if you think about caring for our customers and our businesses, trying to help them in their time of need, it's been particularly tough for Duo because, Duo, given what we do, has sort of exploded in terms of new interest. And so it's really hard because our people are sort of at, they're working overtime. They're, in some cases, they're really struggling. We're all working to kind of cover this as a team, but there's just a tremendous amount of need out there that we're having to sort of race ahead. We are the first responders, right, in a lot of this with some of these organizations, trying to help them go virtual and keep them in business. But that's where I think being explicit about what those changes are, right? Like here was our plan. Here was kind of what we intended to do for 2020. Update, newsflash, we've got a different set of goals now, and here's what we think we'll need to do, and we need everyone's help in figuring out what those should be, because that we won't be able to deliver it all. And so, now is a good time for folks to take action with their teams to care for the business and customers in ways that that you actually can sort of manage in a manner that will be sustainable, right, over potentially many months here. Right. And so, so if we even have on our website, we have literally a link that states exactly what our new expectations are for our customers, right, and how we're going to manage to do that with them, and what they should expect from us. So we're all in together, and that includes our customers, right, and our partners, and so forth, and how we manage this. And so I would suggest that if you haven't had a chance as a founder to oh, hey, Quinn. It's okay. Okay, so here, say hi. Quinn.
Hi.
Hi.
You don't have to crawl out of here, Quinn. It's not the BBC. All right. Anyway, we watched that BBC Dad video, and ever since she's now crawling out of all my meetings. So, at any rate, I just suggest that start building those plans as a team, and being explicit about what changes there will be, right, to your business, so that again you can manage through them successfully together. On the topic of finances, which I know are probably top of a lot of people's minds, that is one of those areas where it takes a village. Like obviously you're going to talk to your teams, obviously you're going to talk to potential investors if you have them, about how you'll be managing forward, but you may also need to talk to folks like your landlords, right? And like I know in Detroit, and kudos to folks like Bedrock, right, who have given sort of the 3-month reprieve, right, for small businesses. But there may be conversations like that with your other vendors or suppliers and so forth to have, and how you sort of negotiate and share some of that pain. And so again, we're all in together, and again, it takes a community to stay afloat. And that's one of those things where I just suggest you don't be shy about those kind of topics with your teams, or your investors, your business partners or colleagues, your customers. Everybody knows this is not business as usual, and we all have a job to do in helping each other get through it.
I like that we're all in it together, and I think that really helps. And feeling that and being able to call people, and everybody's been taking my calls and responsive, even though everybody's stressed about their own thing, and people not slamming me for having my son on here that I was nervous about. At first, it's like you said, everybody's been understanding, and it's really worked well for me to just be honest and open about what's going on with me.
So that's an interesting question here from Ashley on her company, asking to continue outreach and sales. So, a few things. One is, just have an honest conversation about that. Like one of the things, I could bring it up, I guess, but I have a slide from our sales leader about their new expectations that we set right around what that looks like at this time for our sales program, which is pretty explicit. Let me see if I can find it, but it's basically a couple of things. Like number one thing is families first, right? Like nothing's more important than making sure that you, your loved ones, and so forth are safe and healthy and well at this time. The second, though, I think he had it's no profiteering, right? This is a time where there is a lot of need, and now is the time as a business, and this has always been Duo's sales mantra from the start: help, ask. Right? Before we ever ask anything of our customers and what we get out of anything, we've always aligned to how do we solve for our customer success. And at this time, what that often means is that we have to do some things that are not typical, right? We're giving away our product, right? And we're enabling organizations to use it for many months. just so that they can get through the hurdle of sometimes what's an emergency response, trying to get their business set up in such a way that they can continue to be in business. We don't need to ask them for any money right now. And so we're able to do that. Not every business is, but it's just to say that having an honest conversation as a leadership team about what, how you will show up. Right? Again, it's not just how as leaders we will show up and being intentional and thoughtful about that, but how our companies and the business will, because I guarantee you, if we go and help our customers through this at their time of greatest need in ways, again, that they appreciate and respect, that's how you build customers for life, right? And so that's something I think is very important, as leaders to help try to do.
Yeah, I like that. That customers for life, and really taking this as an opportunity. Speaking of the all in it together, we want to give everybody on the chat. We're talking right now about how to put people first. Taking care of people first. If you are on this chat, we got over 100 people here, and you are a founder who can help right now, help people take care of themselves, or of one. Just put like a one sentence in the chat box of what the startup is and a link and a one sentence on how it helps people take care of themselves during this crisis time. And then I love all the questions rolling in. So while you guys are putting the resources down in the chat for people to help with their startups that help take care of people, we're going to hop into the questions and answers.
Okay. Before we jump into questions, I really love Nick's comment over here that says, instead of a normal, aggressive, maybe sales approach, just being human and reaching out and keeping conversations going with people. And I think that touches a lot on what Doug has said.
Yeah, I like that customers for life. And when I call people now, sometimes they think I'm calling for something, but I'm just calling to just check in with them and say how's it going, and they like that.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, Will's got a question here for us. He says, what are some things a B2B SaaS startup can do during this time if they're not able to go out and sell right away, and if they are also not able to give away their product for free, but still want to add value to the local business community?
But you're not able to give away for free. I mean, so I guess it's highly specific to I think the business and what it actually does and what the products may be. But look, I think one way to kind of arrive at that might be to ask your customers, and to ask your customers, what more can we do to help? How they answer that will probably give you a lot of perspective on things that you could try or consider. Because again, I think we all have a contribution to make in some way, and but again, it may be highly specific to what it is that your business does and what you really can accommodate. Because I'm realizing again, they're also this is a very dicey time for a lot of startups. There are a lot of very young startups, right? Within the first 3 years of a company, I mean, every day, as I said, is the best day or the worst day of your life anyway, right? It's always really hard when in those earliest days of a business trying to get off the ground. This is like a double black diamond, right? Kind of situation where it's riskier right now than ever before for those small businesses. That's where I would suggest help put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you think about helping others. So be in a position where your business is kind of stable and settled, and your people are as well before you think about how else you can go out in the community to do anything. It doesn't help anybody to try to be a hero and then sort of not
put yourself out and need help yourself.
Right. And so I think it's don't be shy about asking for the help. Connect with other leaders. Particularly now, there's all these programs that have just been launched with the new COVID relief bill that can help small businesses, small startups, and so forth. And of course, there's a lot to that, application process and all this stuff. We just funded a small business fund that hopefully is simpler than all that. We're trying to turn around in a couple of days to folks, but there are sources of help for you.
Can we give a shout out to that? Because that was very inspiring to see that you and your wife donated $1 million in grant funding for small businesses in Washtenaw County, and trying to make that funds available in just a couple of days, right? And a quick, easy application process, which here in Detroit, there's a lot of other resources coming online too, but as small business owners, we're sort of getting flooded. So I think that making that resource available and easy, huge step. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, yeah, like I said, we all have a part to play and do what we can to contribute. But when we kind of went through it with some of the folks from the SBA, Small Business Administration, SBDC, Small Business Development Center of Michigan, we realized that they're going to be overwhelmed. Like there's 7A applications for their typical kind of loans and grants. In that process for how you get through them, there's not enough bandwidth for them, right? It's gonna take time, and so that was where we're just concerned, because already we're starting to see businesses were already laying off people. We're not even it feels like it's been like a year of this, but
yeah, it does.
We're not even that far into it, and already for businesses to be not only just closing the doors, but like closing up shop is horrific. And so we do think that some of these companies they can survive if they just have a lifeline. But we just got to throw them a little bit of lifeline so they can get to the next level of support that they'll have. But again, that's where I encourage all of you to as you think about kind of how to contribute or what else you can do, think about it those ways. Like if you've learned something about how to be successful applying for these grants or path to success for the business that look like you, share that. Right, work with other, figure out there's, anybody else that you can help, because it's going to take all of us to make sure that we kind of get through this together.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you for doing that. And also, like, I don't know if a lot of the viewers know this or not, but I believe Duo started in 2009. So this is not your first downturn. Do you have any advice for a lot of the startups that we have on watching right now? And you mentioned care and communication, right? So there are a lot of founders who are either cutting their burn rate down, they're taking lower valuation.
Yeah.
How do they go about communicating with their employees, right? Because sometimes it's as bad as like letting them go next month, right? Because they're startups. Right. Do you have any feedback on that for the founders?
No, absolutely. So, now, I think if you read any of Ben Horowitz's books, Hard Thing About Hard Things, all that kind of stuff, he kind of talks about the model of a peacetime CEO and a wartime CEO, and right. And I don't know if I entirely agree with. I know I don't agree with Ben about a lot of things, but that all said, I do agree with this one. This is wartime. Like this is one of those things where we all have extraordinary sort of responsibilities as leaders to go above and beyond, and a few things. Again, make sure you take care of yourself, right? So that you are your best self. If you set up your home gym if you need that, right? Find time to go out on walks and do all that stuff so that your personal failure modes don't become those of the company. It's hard. Like I think Colin Powell, once said something like when the team's sort of in the foxhole and taking fire from all sides and everything else, that's not the time for the leader of to say, oh God, I'm so scared, like this is terrible, like I want to go home, like I mean absolutely we understand this, like nobody's feeling 100%, but you have to prepare, and the focus of your effort as a leader here is one, again, to be a human, be there for your people, and you spend all the time to build trust with them, create the clarity around what you're doing, make sure you help, build reliable execution and results and success for everybody. But now more than ever, it's imperative that we have these contingency plans for our business, and what may happen, because you don't know, right? You may have some teammates, and you hate to think about it, but who may be like directly affected, who may end up themselves incapacitated, or at the very least may have family members or loved ones that are. We had that situation at Duo already, and unfortunately already some really tragic examples of folks whose loved ones have passed away through this.
Oh my gosh!
And so we have to make it possible for our folks to take the time they need, and for the business to continue. And so building those plans, investors have seen before. And so if you have investors, that now is a good time to actually lean on them and work with them about resetting expectations. Like what should our growth rates be then in this year? What can our burn rate? What can we reach our burn rate to? How? When? Should we be kind of pulling back? Should we be leaning in? Strangely, maybe perversely, the best business I've ever built have all started in recessions, and so it's an unfortunate situation for everybody. But it is a case that sometimes when the markets sort of go sideways and all this, sometimes does clear the playing field of other competitors and so forth, and buyers sometimes have even more clear focus and clarity on what it is that they want and what they'll buy, that you can meet and you can rise to the occasion and do a great job for them. But in general, it is a good time for your teams to come together to understand where and how you'll take care of each other, what you can actually draw back from in terms of what you'll do and how you'll save some costs there, to make sure that you have kind of run out those cash projections with all the contingency in mind, and then do sort of as people do in an upside scenario, like a high, medium, low plan, and do that as well in terms of your cash, and think about what contingencies might look like based on various sort of top line achievement. If your sales and so forth are being impacted, trying to understand what that looks like if it continues that way, or if it turns and so forth, is something that
I like what you're talking about. I think sales is on a lot of people's minds, and we'll have that question about what do I do if I can't give my product away? And you talked about engaging with customers. And you talked just now about the best businesses you built were in recessions. How tying those two things together? What's your advice for founders out there right now on how to engage with customers today to build a better business today?
Well, that is a bit. Taking more of an outside-in view of your business and market, if you aren't already doing so, right? I think sometimes startups, particularly ones, I feel I can say this as a technical co-founder along with my CTO. Sometimes end up, hey, I built this thing. Who wants it? And more of an inside-out kind of model, more like supply-side economics, right? I built this thing, and I just got to get it to market. At this time, more than ever, you got to sort of take an outside-in view of how are your customers doing? Which industries are going to be most deeply affected by this that are not going to be the right places to focus on, right? In terms of how you'll keep your business afloat, right? You've got to find the easiest sledding possible right now, but it's also because you don't want to abandon any of your customers, right? That the folks that have been with you or that have come to you. And so talking to them, engaging your customers on, again, what is it that you need right now? And to be honest, I think that's one of the reasons why I think my other businesses have done well in recession, because again, it sharpens the focus. You have customers who in their time of need are looking for help, and they're more willing to work with you, right, on the solutions. Kind of co-develop or co-design sort of what you'll do for them. And
that's actually really interesting. The next question we got up here from Etrit is right along those lines. So Etrit said, we're working with our clients and cutting their contracts by half or more, trying to keep the same team and not change the scope, but worried that keeping the same scope of work with half the budget could set us up for problems later as we be getting our clients used to something that is not sustainable. What do you think about their approach?
Yeah,
cutting revenue by half.
You've got to start cutting the work a little bit too, and setting expectations to your customers about this. Your customers, if it's a consulting business, and typically that's probably for a much larger organization. Ask them for help, right? And sometimes, because if you've done well by them for some time and so forth, you may be able to ask them, like, what can we do so we can work together? And we're in a tough time now, but we're like if they can maintain their consulting retainer, right, versus cutting back on those things and so forth. Even as you're maybe reducing a little bit of kind of what you'll be delivering them, you can't be too proud at this time. And nobody expects that everyone's going to be doing exactly the same thing. But again, just being being human about it, being professional, right? About, again, kind of what your intention is. We hope, we want to be here for a very long time, right? To support your business as, Mr. Customer and Mrs. Customer, but, we hear we're sort of changing our business at this time, and we're looking for your kind of help.
I like that, Doug. Actually, that ask for help is something I struggle with. And I think it was about 4 years ago, I had a business, and the contract was structured half up front, half on delivery. And we got to a point where we were like 99% delivered, but we were waiting on a third party to get the rest of that revenue. And our company was in a tough bind, just waiting for this other half to close. And we didn't know if it was going to be months or years or what. And I hated to do it. I had this pit in my stomach of making this phone call. But I called up the CEO and I said, hey, we didn't deliver, like we haven't completed this. We're going to deliver for you. Would you pay us now? And we'll still deliver. And she said, hey, Dave, no problem. We know who's working with us. We are happy to write you that check.
Yeah. And even within your business, I think, as leaders, look, we can all take some amount of shared sacrifice, but it has to be shared, right? So being clear about, like, here's the scenario and situation facing the company. Being, we always have done open book finances with our team, right? They know exactly how much money we're spending, how much revenue we have, all that kind of stuff. We've been very clear with that stuff with our team for many, many years. But again, socializing, your company or your team to the situation at hand, how you be addressing it, what your asks will be, but also what you're willing to do. Because, I've seen other folks that are doing things like cutting headcount and all the rest. And then, my first question then is, well, what about you? Right? What about your salary? What about, your leaders? Like, lead from the front, right? It needs to be a shared sacrifice. And I guarantee you, like the 10K sort of difference in sort of someone's salary, particularly for like leaders, is going to be a lot less impact to them, typically, than it will be for some of their frontline employees for whom that is like a lifeline, right? So we have to be really thoughtful about that stuff and how we're managing that. And, and again, that's where I strongly encourage, everybody who's on here who is a founder, who's a leader in their business to, again, be intentional about how they do that.
When you think about supporting employees, we've got a question here from Dan. How do you balance encouraging engagement, video calls instead of phone calls, regular check-ins, while respecting people's often hectic work from home situations, tiny, messy apartments, kids, highly distracted? Seems you want to avoid atrophy from lack of contact, but it's also challenging to hold people accountable without the level playing field an office or high quality Wi-Fi work from home setup provides.
Yeah, it maintains flexibility here. So I guess what I'd say is, just like anything, like when we hold, speaking of accountability, right? Like the way that we sort of teach how to do delegation accountability for managers at Duo is, three things. You build trust, number one, right? And most important thing, you build trust. You create clarity, right? Being clear about what it is, the business is doing and what we're trying to achieve. And the third is you drive results in a very specific way, right? And this is, my old CFO, Paul, used to, sort of beat the drum on this for a long time in our business, Paul DeMarzo, and it's how we run the business today. Three things that managers do with their directs: agree on what's to be done, agree on how you hold that person accountable, right? By what metrics, right? You'll measure that success by. And third, agree on how that person will be supported. What do they need, right, to be successful? That's the same today, tomorrow, and it will be in the future, right? Forever, right? In terms of how the basics of management. What do managers do, right, for their people and for their firm? In this turn, right, we have to seek that same agreement. So talking to your directs about their personal situation, what hardship they may have in actually setting any regular schedule, rounding up, like, here's the set of responsibilities I have outside of work that I've got to deal with now. And for some people, it's many, right? It's not even just their immediate family. It may be like, I've got to deal with, my grandparents, right? And we've allowed folks, before the travel ban started, getting enacted, we've allowed folks to Duo to go and do what they need to do. So we have, meet teammates overseas with their parents because they want to be with them at this time, working remotely now and all this kind of thing. And but it has to be an agreement, right, about what those adjustments, sensible adjustments, will be to schedules and so forth, and also just establishing rhythm. So as a concrete example, right, like I have regular schedule weekly one-on-ones with my directs, but it's up to them whether there's anything that we'll want to talk about and whether they can make it or not. They can cancel on me, and that's fine. But setting those kinds of cadence and flexibility and options. I'm doing the ones with people walking outside, right, on the phone, versus doing it via video, because that's what they may need to be able to do to walk their dog or whatever else. So maintaining that flexibility, I think, is very important. And then the third is, on that topic of accountability, because I think what I hear in that question also is just like, how do we make sure that things are on the rails when it comes to our business? If you haven't already, it probably is a good time to sort of practice around sort of a literate kind of management, right, where you are writing what you're doing and everybody knows and sees that, and there's an artifact, right, that's representing, your goals and the work to be done. I know it sounds really simple, right, but not every organization does that or does it well. The way that we do it is with a system called OKRs, objectives and key results, which is just simply like a high level kind of goal or objective, and then specifically measurable results, key results that we can actually measure the success by, which are often quantitative versus qualitative. And we typically only have like 3 to 5 of them, even for like a year, right? A year, and then they break down quarterly for what things we're doing to meet those annual objectives. But if you don't have a system like that, where you can sort of track the work and sort of rebalance it, you can all kind of assess as a team, kind of look at it together and say, oh, that is too much. We're not going to be able to do that. And hey, we didn't seem to get much done on this. Let's take that off. Like those are kind of the basics of, management that hopefully you should be doing anyway. And that become
objectives, keep those key results, and then make it numeric, quantitative, so people can be on it.
Yeah, but all that's good managerial and operational hygiene is what kind of will keep your organization safe, right, through all this. It's like washing your hands. You got to, it's kind of back to basics and focusing on those fundamentals with that in regards to all that stuff. But again, doing those things for your team and accommodating that kind of stuff is only possible if you have kind of a good read on the business otherwise. And so I just suggest, if you don't have lots of set up, now is a good time just go and document, like, what are all the things that we plan to do in 2020, and then go to your teams and talk about that, right?
Yeah, and Doug, I think you often share that you almost have essentially a book of business telling the whole story of Duo, because you would write down a lot over week or month over month changes you would make. And I know we do have to start wrapping up so that Doug can get to the meeting. We're getting pinged here, but before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our next event Friday at noon. We're going to dive more into fundraising with 2 great investors and advisors, Gretchen Knoll and Steve O'Hara from Silicon Valley and Detroit. So we're going to answer more of those questions next Friday. Doug, do you want to leave everybody with maybe one last piece of advice? I liked how you asked us about joy, and I don't remember, did you share something that you're doing right now that's bringing you joy that maybe we can end on a positive note like that today? Yeah,
well, right now, actually serving in the community is something that's, it's something that, is personally very fulfilling, but also something that I think, much of the team has needs to be part of. Because we are blessed. Duo is a successful business, and we're part of Cisco, a just massive tech company that has 50 billion in cash, can do a lot with it, and so we are doing a lot. Cisco has committed 225 million to the coronavirus relief efforts, and both in cash and in kind services for donations, and it is a good time to kind of round up the team to focus on an effort here or there. Like, for instance, we have a bunch of folks at Duo that all go to a restaurant and bar called Old Town, and there's a GoFundMe for that, right, to help all the service workers there. So a number of people kicked in, and they feel really good about that because it's an important and meaningful thing to them. But just as much, I've shared out the United Way of Washington County, which is something I've also, my wife and I have lent our support to, because they are distributing funds based on need to all the nonprofits that are dealing with the response. in sort of one fell swoop, right? Rather than having to go and figure out, well, there's Meals on Wheels versus Community Action Network versus, any number of these different organizations, it takes a lot to figure out. And they do that. That's their job. They do a great job of it. And so I'd also give a shout out to, things that are similar outside of kind of our local community here, like in Detroit. Ned Stabler's done a great job with TechTown leading the Detroit Small Business Stabilization Fund, right? And I know a bunch of folks are into that. Quicken Loans, Dan Gilbert's own foundation. There's a bunch of folks involved with that. Similarly, there's the United Way of Southeastern Michigan, and it's covering a lot beyond Detroit as well. But again, doing the same job of making sure the money gets to the organizations that are servicing and protecting the most vulnerable among us, right? The children, seniors and elderly, the homeless, food insecure. But right now it's a time in our lives and communities where the world is kind of sort of struggling with kind of basic needs, right? Like basic human needs. And so as strategic as we can be about our businesses or our philanthropy, for those of us who've been giving and doing stuff like this in the past, now is not the time necessarily to focus on sort of the, kind of root cause kind of analysis and some of the, systemic kind of issues that are going to take like years to solve and all this. Now is the time for us to circle the wagons, make sure that we're really protecting kind of each other and helping ensure that, we all make it through this, because now we're all in the same boat. We really are. And, our goal should be that nobody falls off it. So.
Yeah,
I like that. We're all in the
You're
same
absolutely
boat.
right.
Make sure nobody falls off it. What's that, Tops?
And we're all going to be cleaner. So that's another thing. Everybody's washing hands.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
No one is going to forget how to wash their hands.
Lotion. Make sure you get some lotion.
Thank you so much, Doug. This was so insightful and helpful and grounding. I hope it was really grounding for everyone else to just take a moment to remember that we're all in this together. We're all humans. We have to be empathetic with our teams now more than ever, our vendors, our partners. I think that was very grounding for us to all get a nice reminder on.
Great. Well, thank you all. Great. And appreciate the opportunity. And I hope wish all the best for you. Be safe, be well, and again, take care of your people.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'll stay on to answer questions after Doug hops in.
We'll stay on a couple minutes. Doug, we got to let you go.
Okay.
Your team asked us to.
All right.
We'll miss you.
Yeah.
Bye, Doug. Maybe we can take one or two more of these questions still left. And
Okay, we got Jacob said, how are you thinking about goal setting and contingency planning for your business, given that this could be a few more weeks, a few more months, or more?
I think Doug did touch on that a little bit with his point of flexibility. You might have had 2020 goals, and now is the time to revisit all of those.
Exactly. I think people are used to having optimistic financial goals, right? And I think planning for the worst case scenario right now is really helpful. One of my good mentors always says this: it's better to be surprised with a not optimistic projection versus optimistic projection, because if you think you're going to make a certain amount and you don't, it's going to hurt your business a lot more versus and I mentioned this in our first talk, take all your monthly recurring revenue and just cut it by 1/3 and make that your next revenue, and just assume and kind of plan the burn rate on that.
I like that. Amanda, how are you thinking about it for your business?
We're doing like, I think someone else said this in the comments, you have your best hopes of getting back to real life maybe in a month or two, and then your worst case planning scenarios, and then being really transparent with our partners and our vendors. I think in Detroit, we do have a lot of these great programs. However, they're not for everybody. And that's part of the challenge, is you have to cipher through. A lot of them are for place-based folks, but I think there's some more coming out for tech and startups as well. So we kind of just have to all navigate this together.
I think for me, I don't have a business at the moment, but I'll answer from a personal perspective. I've tried to assess where am I at, what's my income, what are my liabilities, and then thinking about what are the first things I can stop paying on, if it gets to that position where I can't pay on things. And then in terms of credit, where are my, unsecured loans that I can default on if I need to. And hopefully I'll just continue paying everything like I need to, but I'm planning thinking about that in my head, and gotta get food, want a place to live. Who can I move in with? Those kinds of things is how I'm thinking about it. The next one up, this is from CJ. How much is the COVID-19 virus awakening the public's awareness of modern technology's potentials, such as 3D printing and its provisions of medical supplies?
I think that's super interesting. Have you guys heard the media talking about 3D printing? I think I heard a story around Ford, but I don't know if it's entered public conversation yet.
I've seen this stuff online. I haven't seen it in person. Maybe I've seen photos online of maybe masks that were 3D printed. I think a friend sent me a mask they 3D printed.
One of our members, Lisa from Cinconetti Design in Ann Arbor, our partner on our new Royal location, they have a 3D printer and they're printing for U of M's hospital right now. So I think some of the hospitals have let specs out of what they need. If you do have access to a 3D printer, that's something that you can do.
That's another cool thing I've seen is I saw over the past couple of days, people sent me open source ventilators and masks so that people can make these things from home, which is I think a technology when I think about it, like to do it from home. And I think going forward, there'll be more of that. And so people will be more cognizant of, oh, hey, last time we 3D printed masks and that worked really well. Let's do that again. Or we, open source ventilators and that worked well or not. And I think that'll be.
I think right now we're going to see all solutions, all hands on deck. Like Ford, Carhartt just announced, and Lear is doing some manufacturing. So it's good to have our big stakeholders in Michigan jumping in too. I think that's going to be hugely impactful as well.
Yeah, and Sam Altman said,
saying
too. Yeah, Sam Altman said that he has never seen this before, but every single pharmaceutical company and startup that's in medtech space are all working to solve this one problem. Where I think something good is going to come out of this, right? Where you see startups literally, like there's a startup we're looking at right now in New York. They're literally 3D printing ventilators right now. Last week they were literally 3D printing something else, and now they're doing ventilators, and they're currently making 100 a week already. So you see all these startups just kind of getting more creative and doing something for a better good, right? So I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
Actually, yeah, and my son pointed out, Jerry Norris here in the chat, he said that he's at the Fledge and he is 3D printing masks right now.
Yeah, he is printing masks.
Look at that.
Wait, are you printing masks right now, Jerry?
I think he just means in general.
Oh.
The next question we got up here is from David Zeden, not me.
Not this David, definitely not.
What do you believe will be the short-term and long-term effects of COVID-19 beyond the health effects, specifically on consumer psyche, business, supply chain, disaster planning, etc., and government moving forward? Get out your crystal balls, Amanda. Tops. What do you think?
So maybe I can talk a little bit. Maybe Amanda, you can chime in. But I think that a lot of these big businesses are just going to start doing what they were originally supposed to be doing. I think, as you can see, like big companies like Amazon and Instacart, they're not even giving their employees, hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes, right? So you see those little things like that where you just see a lot of these big companies start implementing what they were supposed to be doing in the first place. And you will just see that on a lot extreme case scenario now, where you will see all those businesses like plan for the worst case scenario ahead of time. And I think this is going to be this big trend, right? Where like, hey, every desk before used to have a monitor, and now they're going to have a hand sanitizer and a Clorox wipe, right? Yeah. So you're going to see businesses behaving in a lot different way. And I think someone just mentioned Instacart just announced they're giving them hands. Okay, that's new. Just yesterday, so they started giving them hand sanitizer yesterday.
I was going to say
something positive.
Kind of similar to what you're saying, Tops. I think gig workers are going to be treated more like full-time real workers. The state of Michigan just made it more able for gig workers to get unemployment benefits. I think the details are still coming out there, but we're shifting to a world where 30 to 40% of our workforce is a 1099 contractor, small business owner. So if we don't have more support and more flexibility there for them, then we're going to get hit harder. And so I think it's forcing us to look at a lot of these social norms that we've had set up in the economy and try to adjust them and make them more flexible.
I think a really interesting thing is going to happen where we've got moratoriums on mortgages, mortgage payments, evictions, and people can't go to work. So what happens in our economy when we see you can't earn money, but you still need to spend money to acquire resources? And I think that we're going to see things I've never seen in my lifetime, maybe that were happening in World War II, where the government's going to step in a big way. And I think there will be some learnings for us as a nation coming out of that, probably positive things and negative things.
Yeah, and also like I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things, the biggest people are relied on right now outside medical workers is the people who make minimum wage. So people at Walmart, people at Kroger who are making $10 to $12 an hour, they're risking their life for us, and you'll see them being treated differently as well, right? Because right now, we just realized that if my mom works at Walmart, let's say, chance of her getting some sort of disease because of some sort of infection is going to be a lot higher. So I think people are going to put a lot more benefits or whatever it may be for those employees who are working in local retail shops.
We got the next question here. I was just beginning to search. So this is from Ida. I was just beginning to search for accelerators and seed funds to begin my fundraise April 15th. What advice do you have? Should I postpone or keep moving forward?
I think we can answer. Tops can probably speak really well to that one, but I'm going to plug in tomorrow's show one more time, or not tomorrow, Friday at noon. We have two great investors coming on board who have been through recessions before, so they're going to talk a little bit about that and how you can fundraise right now. So just plugging that to come join us Friday at noon for our next talk. But I think, Top, you can probably help her navigate this one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the financials, I mean, come tune in on Friday. You know, we have amazing people, right?
Tops he's been at two accelerators, 2 or 3. So he's
accelerators.
He's really into this topic. And go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think definitely keep on applying to accelerators. And the reason why I say that is when you see, I think the founders who get into an accelerator are almost like, it's harder to get into an accelerator than it's to get in Harvard, right? So the way I look at it is if LPs are investing, let's say, only 2 checks a month versus 10 checks a month, they're going to be cherry picking the best companies, and the best companies come out of accelerator and also early stage funds. So I highly suggest you applying to accelerators because accelerators' goal is you have something that works and now your customers change. So how do you do new customer discovery? How do you create new partnership? And accelerator gives you the opportunity to do that, right? And all the accelerators are still, up and running. I mean, Techstars has 40 accelerators. Either they've moved virtual or they've been postponed, but none of them have been canceled. So I highly suggest you applying for accelerators. And also tuning in on Friday, we have the general partner of the Valley Fund joining, as well as Gretchen from Lake Street Capital. They both have raised multi-millions of dollars, and they've been through multiple recessions. So they'll have great advice for you guys on not just accelerators, but also fundraising through these times.
So you heard it from Tops. I'll throw my 2 cents in there. I think if I was a founder today, I would be nervous about the fundraising environment. I'm an angel investor. You know, I'm much less wealthy than I was, a month ago, 3 weeks ago. And so that means I'm going to be writing less checks. I'm going to be worried about me more than other people. I think valuations are going to be down. I think investment's going to be down for a while. I think the investors who are investing are going to be looking for deals, different terms. I think there are great companies like Techstars, like Y Combinator. Techstars I saw committed to keeping their terms the same. They're not changing anything. They're not taking advantage of the situation. I think that's going to be the exception. I think the top maybe 1 to 20% of investors and accelerators, something in that arena are going to, hold their terms the same. But I think a lot of investors are thinking valuations are going to come down. Everybody's asking for my money, and that investors are going to be looking for deals.
Because you have millions of dollars.
Yeah, and also Ferris made a great point on the chat. He said equity crowdfunding. So that's where non-accredited investors can invest in you as low as $50. And I know, Ferris, you went through Republic, I believe, or one of the companies. And I know there's multiple companies like that called Net Capital, Republic. Let me know if I can connect you guys. If you guys think about equity crowdfunding, I can make you some intros to Net Capital and Republic. So just drop me a note. I'll put my email right here. And I'm happy to make any intros.
Okay. Next up, we've got Brian. Brian says, we are looking at the operations and logistics side of the challenge. I think more opportunities lie in understanding the supply chain and providing mental health support.
You know, we didn't talk about mental health, which I'm a little surprised. We talked about leaders keeping their masks on. One startup that I know has gotten a lot of traction, and they've been around a little while now, is Calm. It's an app for meditation. There's a lot of different meditation resources out there too. But I think you're going to see some of those subscription-based services grow right now.
No, absolutely. Maybe we can do 2 more questions.
Yeah, we'll try to tackle the last 1 or 2, and then we're going to hop off. We know we want to be respectful of everybody's time. So next question comes from Amelie. Similar to Will's question, if your B2B sales team does want to try and continue selling their product, perhaps it may benefit the new work from home norm. How would you recommend doing this respectfully? I think we did I think quite a few people touched on this throughout the whole chat. Maybe not doing a hard sell first, but opening up communication, checking in with them as people, not knowing what situation they're going to be in. And I think staying friendly, staying focused on that human connection, and then asking them how you can help, and maybe figuring out. I was on a call last night with another founder who had their value proposition figured out, but they actually strengthened it right now with this market opportunity by zoning in a little further. And Doug talked to that too. So if you have a tool right now that helps from work from home, that's great. What tools are people using already? And what differentiates your tool? And then is there a really specific pain point that we're all feeling, right? Like my dogs are barking or my kids distracting me, or like what is that very niche pain point that you can solve? And so talking to your customers and zoning in on that even further, I think is going to strengthen your business right now.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, if you're a privileged company that is still spending money on marketing, I say just cut that cost and convert it to giving out those, putting those dollars into giving out those products for free for 2 to 3 months to your customers. And when you do that, where you know they're going to most likely going to be your customers, and you give them the product for 2 to 3 months, they're going to get addicted to the product, and they're going to once the economy is back up, more likely they're going to come back to your product and subscribe, right? So this another cost of acquisition right there where you guys can think of. And I'm not saying every company can afford doing that, but if you are privileged enough where you can afford that, that's a great strategy too.
Okay, sorry about that. My I had a little emergency.
In the bathroom.
So next up, I thought my bladder was going to burst. I drink a gallon of water a day, and I guess I didn't plan it so well today.
I know.
Okay, next up, we've got Dave Mulder. He's one of my friends here in Lansing, longtime entrepreneur, known him for over a decade. He says, most people are assuming that normality will start to return within a month or so. What if it doesn't? At what point should we start planning for long-term changes?
I think almost every single investor and amazing leaders have mentioned, like, if you're a startup, plan for the worst case scenario. And just kind of like looking at what's happening right now, we have already, like, US itself has at least spent $2 trillion on rescuing small to medium sized businesses and all that, right? I think we are going to hit a point where there is going to be a slowdown. I think founders need to plan at least for an 18-month runway. And if not, I mean, I suggest 36 months. I think even though in one or 2 months, if we're all out and about spending money again, going to clubs and, you know, like, it's simple things like getting coffee again that we appreciate. One thing that's not going to change is going to be the economy, because there are going to be so many businesses that are going to be impacted where it's going to take north of a year or a year and a half to get back into normality again, if not more.
And if 18 to 36 months, you can't think about that, then, you know, there's a lot of startups right now in our community we know are at the 3 to 6 month, right? So how can you get from 6 to 12? How can you take that next step forward and lean on your investors and your advisors and your community? Talk to your customers. I mean, there will be a way forward. You will figure that out.
Yeah, and also, like, it's easier for us to say this, but I know cutting burn is not easy. You're letting go of employees, and I suggest doing that in the most humane way. Like, give them severance, right? Like, if you have 8-month runway with all your employees right now, you need to cut it down to 6 months. But by giving them 2 more months of severance, you can cut it down to 4-month runway. I suggest doing that, and I totally understand that it's a difficult situation. It's easy for us to say it, but definitely take care of your employees first, and you'll be shocked because if things come back to being okay quickly, all your employees are going to appreciate you giving them 1 month extra severance and coming back and helping you again.
For me, I think it'd be a real, I think number one, what Doug said about taking care of yourself first, put the mask on yourself before taking care of other people. If I was a business owner, I agree with Tops and Amanda, planning for the worst. So I would look at, how much has my revenue been dropping per month, per week, whatever that worst is, and think about that continued drop. What does that look like? And how do I survive that, 36 months out? And I imagine for a lot of businesses, for my own personal finances, that when I was doing that kind of planning earlier, it was like, hey, I'm going to stop paying bills. That's my survival mechanism. And I haven't hit that, and I hope I never will hit that, but that's in my head. That's my plan. I'm going to start, defaulting on obligations. I'm going to stop paying rent or whatever if it comes to that, so that I can continue to do the things that I need to do.
We talked kind of pretty in depth on finance with CEO Mark Hudson Monday. All of these are recorded and saved afterwards. If you go to our Crowdcast page, you can find everything there. So we can't go too probably in depth on financial strategy right now, but please check that one out.
Yeah, and also I wrote a blog post where I go deep into how startups can beat COVID-19. I just dropped a link right there. And I mentioned the Sequoia metrics that Jerry mentioned and that Amanda mentioned. So definitely check that link out, and you can also reach out to me directly from there. And I'm also going to be holding office hours this entire week. So I'm going to drop a link in a few seconds where you can schedule some time with me and just bounce off ideas, anything I can do to help.
I want to plug Tops' office hours. He always helps us make my ideas better. There's one more thing I want to talk about on the planning side of things is I would take it on day by day and look for where my opportunities today, like what's working, what's not working, try to double down on what is working, try to think of ways I can work differently. Maybe maybe my big customer segment is down, but maybe a tiny customer segment is up, or maybe somebody else's business is hurting. Maybe I can partner with yoga studios or something where people aren't going in to do yoga today. So maybe there's a way where that yoga business is hurting. And is there a way I can tie them into my business, and I can help them get revenue by taking advantage of their customer base who is maybe, into health and those kinds of things. And so it's like a win-win. Those are the kind of opportunities I'd be looking for as a founder.
I think we should take maybe one more. And then
we got two left. Let's do two.
Okay.
Let's do two.
Okay. From Brenda, I hear Doug say build trust and create clarity are key. What are ways to empower teams to embrace their own agency to stay inspired?
I think he touched on that a little bit too. For us, it's having consistent, regular check-ins. And what we do for our team is just a half hour every day where we can see each other in person. And before we dive into business, we check in with the people and see how they're doing, and experience share what's helping right now. Because you don't know what each person's going through and how they're being impacted unless you ask and you make them feel comfortable sharing that. And you might have to create that culture as the leader or the member on that team.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like what Amanda said, doing little things, right? Like I had someone reach out to me this morning asking me if I had a comfy chair to work on every day. If not, they'll send it to me. So it's like if you have an employee that's working and, send them hand sanitizer, send them some little things like that, right? Where I think those little things go a long way. I mean, also like another company that just started doing hand sanitizer, heybippy.com. Check them out. They're doing hand sanitizer right now. It's like $6. You can send them to your employees. It's just a great little thing. And you're also supporting small businesses.
I like both those. I like those consistent, regular check-ins. And Tops is such a people person. He knows how to, make people feel special.
He does.
For me, on the empowering people, I like to actually empower them. I like to give them, authority, say, hey, you're going to own this, or maybe, hey, you're going to own this budget piece. I was on a school board a few years back, and we had teacher appreciation. And typically the way that it would work was that the board would decide, hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And what I did when I got on that board was I said, hey, why don't we just allocate the budget for that and say, hey, we'll spend $10,000 for teacher appreciation, and the principal can handle it and report back to us how it was spent. And so I like to empower by transparency and delegation are my
Wait, we got 2 more questions.
techniques. Okay, we're gonna, I think, can you please? So the next question here is, what other options, from Vic, what other options do you have for practicing self-care? This situation with the virus is unnerving. Vic, I don't know if I was great at self-care before. I've been drinking a gallon of water a day. I've been exercising every day. I've been trying to sleep, but I've been having a hard time sleeping. Earlier at the beginning of this session, Amanda was talking about giving back to the community, and Doug was talking about, giving back both to the community and to his employees. He's making donations, and I feel like there's an infinite amount of stuff that we can do, and so I'm clearly not doing everything that I can do, and I feel guilt and stress about that. There's all these things I can do, and what am I doing? I'm on a show right now. Some of my friends, are volunteering at old person's homes, or printing masks, or who knows what, and I'm sitting in front of the computer.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go volunteer, but obviously, I suggest don't go into senior care, only because sometimes 25 to 50% people don't even realize they have some symptoms, and you could be a carrier. So be safe. If you are asymptomatic, then go. But I used to always laugh at this when people used to tell me to take a mental day. I'm like, what is that? And I always said it was this California thing. But I think that since you're working from home every day, you're surrounded by the same environment, it's hard to sleep. It's all this stuff, right? So it's okay to, take one day off work and just take a mental day and just take care of yourself. Maybe play Xbox the entire day, whatever it is, right? Treat yourself. And I think now is the time it's okay to do that, because one day more of if you take one day off, now it's a 3-day weekend. It's okay, because you're more likely to come on Tuesday, a lot more prepared, ready to go. And it's totally okay to do that as well.
Yeah, and I just want to say, everybody's situation is different. Every day might be different, right? You might have a traumatic experience and need a day of self-care. You might have family going through different things. But I think Doug's message of trying to take care of yourself before you're there for other people, it's hard, especially if you're very active in the community. We're all very active in our communities, and we feel the pain around us. We want to be there for everybody, and we have to balance that with taking care of ourselves. So for me, on the more stressful days that I've had, I have not watched the news or media. I find that to be very distracting, and then I fall down rabbit holes trying to read the different perspectives and finding the truth, and it becomes a time suck. I might turn on my Calm app and just listen to some calming music. Maybe I'll hop on a bike or take a nap, because it's when I nap, it's a total reset. And, I can't do all those things all the time. And maybe it's at the end of the day. But those little things help me kind of step back and say, okay, you have to be aware of what you can control and what you can't control. And you can control how you're reacting to these situations and how you're taking care of yourself. You can't control a whole lot of things. I can't sew. Learning to sew is going to be a big distraction for me, but what I can do is connect people in my community to the sewers, to the Detroit Denims, to Isaiah, to these people on the ground doing that work. And it may sound like not much, but I know that at least I'm pushing some things forward and doing my part as a connector and a community builder. So I think we're all sort of shifting and facing this together. And please reach out to anyone if you need to talk.
Yeah. Also, one thing that Amanda mentioned, which you guys should do right away, is turn off news. Because all these media outlets, I don't know if you guys know this, but they make money every time you click. So their goal is to write down, this young 12-year-old died, but then you realize maybe it was by car accident and just happened to have corona at the same time. Their goal is to just get you to click on that link. And it gets really, you can get anxiety. There's so many things you can get, it's not the best outlet to consume your information. So turn off that TV, maybe watch it once every couple of days, but do not watch it every single minute of the day.
Or if I'm having a better day, I might tune in at the end of the day to get caught.
Exactly.
Right. I love the New York Times. I cannot listen to their app right now. They were interviewing doctors in Italy, and it's very emotionally draining when you're already trying to be there for yourself and your loved one.
Like this loved one.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, hey everyone, thanks for coming. We got the next session is Friday. We'll have 2 VCs on the call. They've been through a couple downturns in the past, So if you want to raise money, right now in a crisis situation, they're gonna have the tips for you. And hopefully we'll see you Friday. I'm gonna stay on a little bit in case somebody wants to chat on advice on how to make this thing better. But I'll stay on in the chat and probably make some lunch in case anybody else wants to hang out.
Thanks all. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye, Colin.
Bye, Amanda. Bye, Japan.